Hey
Hi,
there.
welcome, welcome, welcome. We are here with a dear colleague and friend, Reverend Jenn Cormier, and she is a grief guide, and she has been a guide and support for me on my recent journey. And so I am very honored to have her here to share her insight, her gifts, her knowledge, and her offerings.
Hmm.
So, Jenn, welcome.
Thank you, Padma. It's really a pleasure to have a little time to come in and chat with you today. Thanks for having
Yes.
me.
Yay.
Looking forward to saying hi to your community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they have been with me on my journey. So, I mean, not everybody knows, but I think some of them know the journey that I've been on with my own grief with my dad.
Yeah.
And so, which is why your work has been just so important to me. Uh,
Mm.
and why I think it's important for people to know that there is support
Yeah.
beyond, right, when you're dealing with a loss and sometimes beyond our system.
Yeah.
And so what I'd love to ask of you and have you share is, how did you get into this? How did you get into this work?
Yeah. I got into this work because of the loss of my dad as well. I have that in common. I tend to find other people who have had a parent loss and we resonate on a certain level. So if you're listening to this and you've lost either one of your parents or both of your parents, it's kind of an initiation, right, into like this new um place of adulthood. So um the work that I do often is with women who've lost a parent, but sometimes it's they've lost a partner or a child, or the grief of losing their job or divorce, or so I just want to first of all speak to grief as the definition of grief. Sometimes people think grief equals intense sadness after a major death, right, period. And I just really want to open um, society to the idea of grief being like a very large um, experience. It's a process, and it can really hold all of the emotions. So when you have a big loss and you're going through a grieving process, um, it can last a very long time, and it can hold
Mm,
all of the emotions. It can hold the sadness and the anger and the desperation and the guilt and the shame and the gratitude and the honoring and the pleasure and the humor, and it can hold all of it. So I just want to, as I share how I got into this work, I learned firsthand directly from the energy of grief. So I feel like grief is a journey, grief is an energy, and it to me is if we make the decision to have our grieving be a conscious process, then that decision to say, okay, I'm going to go on this grieving journey, I'm going to go with it, I'm not going to fight it, I'm not going to push it away, I'm not going to try and get over it as fast as possible, right? Our culture is very much about battling cancer and getting over grief, and like just just get over it as fast as possible, right? Like, aren't you over it already? I mean, I know people have said to me like, oh, people say such cruel things. I think you and I had a conversation about it, like, we don't know how to support each other with kind words because we're such a push, get over it, get through it, battle it kind of culture. So the perspective
yeah.
that I offer for people is that grief can actually be a healing journey itself. Your grieving process can be a healing journey, and that's the invitation that I have for folks who are asking to work with me. I say, that you're at a choice point. After a major loss, we're sort of at this crossroads, and we can make a decision to say, I'm going to go on a healing journey with grief, starting now, starting today. And that takes a long time. I mean, for some people, it's years. Often, a year is a good amount of time to really. That's what I did when my dad died. Is I had a mentor, Dr. Lewis, who said to me, why don't you take grief by the hand and walk with it, through every season and every holiday and every birthday. You go through all of those seasons and let it be your teacher. And that just gave me so much relief, like hearing that perspective, because I'd never had a major loss like that before. I never felt so heavy. I described the process. It felt like liquid lead in my body when my dad died. And he had been sick for a few years. He had stage 4 prostate cancer at age 57, and he died at 59. And we had 3 years of him, healing with cancer, but it was still, and so I thought I had done all this anticipatory grief. Like I figured like after he died, I wouldn't be grieving that much or something. I don't know if anyone here can relate. If you're watching this in the replay, just let us know you're here, put like a hashtag replay or something, or pop an emoji in the chat if you're like, oh my gosh, I can relate to that. Because I've heard that from a lot of people, like, oh, I thought I had done all this anticipatory grief while whoever was, slowly dying of this terminal illness. So I thought I'd be fine after they were gone, because people are like, oh, it's a relief. They're in a better place. They're free of their body. Like we should just go straight to the celebration of life and everything should be great. And it's like, that was just not.
Yeah, no, that's not what happens.
It was not what happened. It was because my dad was gone, and I was, wow. So that's how I got into grief work, was really the death of my dad, and then showing up for the grief process. Luckily, I had a mentor there to support me, and just the invitation, simply the invitation to let grief be a teacher and walk with it for a full year. And because I think grief, it slows us down. I know we were both saying like, I'm so slow, I think when we go through, it takes so much mental, emotional, physical energy. So I just want to say that to any of you who feel exhausted, if you've gone through any layer of loss, that takes a lot of emotional calories. It takes a lot of emotional energy, and it's exhausting. So you need a lot more sleep and a lot more restful, rejuvenating activities in your life. And often we're like, oh, but I got to keep going. I've got to get back to work. But we really need a ton of rest after a major loss. So I just want to speak to that.
And I guess I also just want to say, like, I've had my loss, and I loved that because I remember when my mom died, there was my first birthday without my mom, her first birthday, the first Thanksgiving, the first Christmas holiday without my mom. It was really hard. And so it's been really nice to just have that overlay of like, oh, I'm doing it again. I'm going through this process of like, oh, here we come. Holidays are coming. It's like his birthday's coming, like just all the markers. And also just the acknowledgement that we have losses all the time.
Yeah.
We've had a huge loss over the past 3 years that most people have experienced, whether it's a loss of somebody that they loved, or a loss of job, or a loss of home, or a loss of income, or just a loss of stability.
Yeah.
Right. That there's so many levels of grieving that we don't do. Like a death we can point to and say, oh, that was big.
Right.
There's a reason why I feel destabilized. But when it's a maybe smaller one, we don't sometimes probably take the time to actually acknowledge that it's had an impact.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we don't do that anyway. And our culture is just kind of like, get on to the next thing.
Right.
Get back up, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and keep going. And you're okay.
Yeah.
And sometimes we're not okay.
And sometimes we're not okay. And sometimes we have to go through shock, and sometimes we have to go through denial, and sometimes we have to like numb out and, just watch a bunch of TV or what. So whatever you're doing to get through the day, just want to say it's okay. And we can be really hard on ourselves if we are coping in these different ways. So just like, I think just the softening into like, wow, this is hard. And I may be doing some skillful things and some unskillful things. And, and just recognizing that's all okay. And whatever level of awareness you have to
Yeah.
just see if you can be gentle with yourself and go, hey, my best is really mediocre and sometimes really poor, and that's okay.
Yeah.
As a recovering, I had a cohort of clients going through I have a year-long heal immersion program for folks after a loss, and I had a cohort of several women that were moving through at the same time, and it was about a half a dozen of them, and 100% said that they were recovering perfectionists. So I
Mm,
think it can hit us really hard when we like to control things, and we feel like we're responsible, and we like to have everything, all the ducks in the row. Then when we have a loss, it like knocks us down even harder because we realize, oh my gosh, I'm not in control, and there's nothing that can fix this or make it right. So it can be really hard. Um, so just being gentle on yourself is something that's really important.
yeah. And I know you touched on it earlier, but just I mean, I'm sure that you've had many different kinds of loss and different qualities of grief. Um, and I guess, how do you, receive support or ask for support or give support, right? In all those different qualities, right? So if you're supporting other, like a child, if you've lost a partner, um, like, just what can you offer to people when they're not only managing their own grief, but how do they, right? How do they receive or look for or find support? And then how do they offer that support to others if it's needed in the house?
Yeah. So the first thing I want to say is everyone grieves differently. So that's really challenging because you think, oh, well, everybody else should kind of have my experience. And two people in the same household may be going through it very differently.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's a next level challenge in communication, right? And how to, so I think that the work that we do when we do our own grief work, we're really doing work that supports us for our lifetime, like coming home and becoming whole and really increasing our awareness of self. And the more we do that, the more we can be present for other people. So
Mm-hmm.
so I just want to say that sometimes, especially for women who are caregivers, and I want to help this person, I want to help my kid, I want to support my husband, I want to whatever, the more we can, it seems like a paradox or something, but the more that we can do our own healing work and the more we can take care of our own hearts and our own bodies, then we can show up and be present for whoever in our household might be struggling, right? And then understanding, okay, they may function and be dealing with this in a very different way than I do. you know i might I might really need a lot of touch, and they might really need a lot of alone time in nature, right? Or so just understanding that everybody does it differently, I think, is really helpful. And then being
Yeah.
as specific so that's one tip. So I'll just say tip number one, I'll give you a few tips. Tip number one, understanding everyone's going to deal in a different way and
Mhm.
likely not like you, which can cause a lot of family strife, actually. So that's something that families, if you can get someone like me, a grief guide or a death doula or a therapist or a counselor or a hospice worker or a chaplain or anybody that your family resonates with to hold space for the whole family, that's really beneficial. So I'll just put that plug in for getting some kind of support that way. So knowing we all do it differently. And then the second piece would be, um, can you do your own internal work? So whether that's if you have I know that you practice yoga, like if folks are, oh, I've got a mindfulness practice, a meditation practice, a yoga practice, a qigong practice, whatever it is, maybe you walk in nature in the mornings or whatever it is, keep doing your self-nurturing practice, whatever that is, so that you can feel settled in yourself.
Yeah.
That's really important. And then you can come to whatever situation with a little clarity and some inner alignment. So that would be number 2. And then number 3, I'll just give you 3 things because more than that's a lot. Number 3 is to be really specific about what you're available for to support someone else in your household. So you've got a household and everybody lost their mom or everybody, mom and grandma and whatever, or everybody lost whoever, or a house or something major. Take care of yourself first as best you can, right? As best you can. And then see if you can be specific. Would you like, I can support you right now by making a pot of chicken soup and we can eat in an hour or something, I hear a lot. What was really challenging for me personally, I don't know if other people resonate with this, but was when people would come up to say to me, after my dad died, Jenn, anything you need, anything you need, anything you need. And so many people said that. And I was just like blinded, like, what do I say back to that? Like, I was like, will you give me a house in Hawaii or will you buy me a private jet? I mean, I need a chef. A personal cook. I mean, I don't like what do you mean anything I need, right? So you don't really mean anything I need. You mean like my heart is bursting for you and whatever you need, I'll try and do whatever, I'd love to be here for you. So if you can get a little more tangible, because our brains are just not online, especially after a major like initial grief. So to be able to say, listen, I'd love to support you. Can I take you into the woods for a walk this afternoon? Or would you like a foot rub? Like 2 things that you want to offer, or neither. Like, would you like some touch right now? Or would you like your space? Right? Oh, I'd like some touch. Okay. Would you like a hug or foot rub? Right. Then it's like really specific. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I love a foot rub. Great. Now we know.
And then also brings, and it's interesting that I went there because I am a mom, but I think that what is most important, and I, as I am hearing you give answers, I'm like, but most women need to be supported, right? Yes,
Yeah.
we're very good at making sure everybody's okay. And even after a death, making arrangements and making sure that things are taken care of. But it's really that we need support. We need a place to be held and to be taken care of, and not necessarily have to do anything or take care of anybody, but to be taken care of. And is that hard? Do you find that hard for women to actually kind of step into that fully?
And that's something that like these things, these are like shifts and life skills that when there's a major loss, it's like we need to make that shift, and we can shift for the rest of our lives, like how we're caring for ourselves and saying like, I need this time and space for myself. And that's something I do with women. It takes a full year to start reorganizing, like just to say the words I need. I mean, I was like, oh, I have needs. Like, what do you mean I have needs? You know what I mean? Like, I need some space right now. I need to get out in nature. So it's like tapping into what is it that I want? What is it that my body needs? What do I want and need and desire? And then to be able to like say it and then actually claim it and say, hey, I need support with the kids, or I need, someone to take my child so that I can go to the ocean and just stare into space all day, and really asking for specific support, and then being okay with hearing no. And this is something that's great to practice when we're not in a big grief moment, because then we have the skills when we are more challenged emotionally, right? So, but to be able to say, I really need X, would you be willing to Y? And then be able to hear no from someone and go, okay, and then just go on and ask the next person, and how else could that need be met?
Right. Right. And so it also just reminds me of, I mean, it just brings me to your containers, right? That having, I mean, it's similar to a therapist, but it's different,
Yeah.
right? Being in a container for grief,
Yeah.
right? That you have somebody that can support you to all the layers of grief, whether it's just crying and not having any words or perspective,
Yeah.
right? I love that you're the acknowledgement of all that arises, right? There's the anger, there's the joy, there's the longing, there's the missing, there's the
Yeah.
um not knowing what
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah.
Having somebody who can hold that space and really allowing, I mean, I think that allowing yourself, I can speak for me that, I've had a few losses, but there is that, just being able to have all of those emotions and finding somebody who can support that, or having the process, right, of moving through emotions and finding clarity and finding wisdom and finding um, all of it, from the gratitude of the other person to the gratitude of being able to feel that much love for somebody,
Yeah.
right, to be being kind of broken open.
Yeah.
So I guess it's just kind of an opportunity to just to say that you create these containers,
Yeah.
and that I have been witness to your container. And so I know you have an event coming up soon. Would you like to just tell us a little bit? You have a couple of containers coming up.
Yeah.
Would you like to?
Yeah, I've got 3 things that I can share that are all coming up in the next couple months. So I can kind of just share whichever one feels like right and ripe if you're listening to this.
Excuse me.
The next one coming up chronologically is next week. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for 3 days, I'm doing a virtual retreat, a healing virtual retreat for women after loss, especially for women. And that's an hour and a half a day, in the middle of the day, 12 noon Pacific. And you can register for that to really receive support if you're kind of ruminating on the what ifs and I should have done this, or I'm feeling really heavy, or I'm not feeling support, I'm feeling alone. So we'll be doing some practices to get connected. We'll be talking about different ways that we can really feel supported, get some radical support. If you feel like, gosh, I don't feel connected or supported, it's going to be a great place for you to come and feel connected to other people that are going through this, and also get some tools to receive that connection and that support. So that's it's an hour and a half a day, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, the 3rd, 4th, and 5th of October. That's next week. And I invite you to come to that. We'll be engaging together in the private Grief and Grace Facebook group. So you're welcome to join the Facebook group. The event is free for everyone that's a Grief and Grace Facebook group member. So you're welcome to join the group, and then that'll be free. And then coming up the following weekend on the 15th, the 15th of October on a Sunday. So some people, I kind of go back and forth. Some people really like to do things on Sundays, and some people really like to do things during the weekdays. So I just wanted to offer a couple options. It's going to be 3 hours all in one day. It's a half-day virtual retreat for a community, especially for women who've gone through a loss of a parent, especially.
Yeah.
And you're welcome to come if you don't have a loss of a parent, if it's something else and you feel called to come, that's totally fine. I'm welcoming, everyone to this, but just because that's really a lot of folks who come to me that need help, or women after parent loss. So that's a community retreat on Sunday, the 15th from 10 a.m. Pacific to 1 p.m. Pacific. And I'd love to offer anyone in your community a complimentary ticket to that. So there's a complimentary code that we can put in. We can add
Yeah, I'll put that. So Facebook, I'll put it in the chat. On YouTube, I'll put it in the show notes. So
yeah, so that'll be, available for folks to come. So I just want to make that really accessible for everybody
great.
on the 15th.
Yay.
Yeah. And then lastly, if anyone's happens to be listening to this all the way to the end, congratulations. um, and if you're feeling like you really need in person, because I know that for me, I am, I really went full into this grief work, the year of the pandemic, and I've been doing Zoom, 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 and it's really effective. And there's really fantastic containers that we can hold on Zoom, and I do just about all of my work here, and it's fantastic. But if you're really wanting a retreat and a time to be in person with folks, I'm also hosting an in-person healing retreat in Mexico coming up in November. So if you happen to be hearing this, I just felt
Sounds
like I wanted to
amazing.
say that. So if you're like, I want to go to Mexico in November, that's November 12th. We're going to the pyramids in Teotihuacan. And
That sounds amazing.
lots of singing and lots of art. And it's really about reclaiming joy. So if you're really ready to reclaim your life and reclaim joy, that is that retreat. So
Yeah. And I just want to put a plug in for containers. So these are 3 amazing containers, and we'll put the information below. And there's just something about being in a place where it's okay to be in your process, right? Because I know that
yes,
sometimes in the world we have to walk around like we're all okay. And
yeah,
this is a place where you can be wherever you are.
yeah. And you can be
And
as
it moves.
okay or not okay, and any shade of color of whatever is perfectly fine. So that is and
Yeah.
welcome. So and it's really a practice to start welcoming that in each other, and then we welcome that in ourselves, and we have more compassion for someone else, and then we have more compassion for ourselves, and suddenly our whole relationship with how we are with
Yeah, and this is
ourselves change.
mostly women, right? This is all women. So there's something really magical about being in a group of women.
Yeah, yeah,
Something very magical. So yay. Thank you for
yeah,
offering all of this.
yeah.
I'm so happy we had a chance to talk.
Me too.
We've had many opportunities to talk, but it's nice to have a formal.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so thank you all for showing up, for being here, for listening. And again, we'll put the information so that you have it. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to either one of us. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Padma.